and Shep, where Mondays are for the mind. We're live on every outlet at 6 p.m. Central Time. So hit the follow to the channel, make sure that you're notified, so you can join us every Monday. Chase and Shep is now live.
Chase and Shep, Mondays for the mind. This month we're checking in on you for mental health awareness. How you been doing? We're glad you're still here with us. We got some new guests and some returning guests. Let's vibe.
I forgot about that.
There you go, man. See?
That was nice.
It gets you real hype and ready for Mondays to start.
Oh yeah. Disclaimer, I've been itching my eye for like the past 5 minutes. So if it looks like my eyes is like, dude, he's blazing. No, I'm allergies.
We're just
Like,
having
for
a
real.
very emotional conversation over here.
For real. It could
Don't
be
let 'em fool
anything, you know.
Don't let them fool you guys. We've been
You
having
know.
some heart-to-hearts here.
Heart to hearts. Who better to share heart to hearts with than Ron Chevarie back again?
Back again.
Hey,
How are you,
boy.
Ron?
Very good. How are you guys doing?
All right.
Yeah, not
I'm
bad.
okay.
Yeah. Back for part who?
Part who?
Part who?
Part who?
I want to expose more of our Hooniverse, you know, to
Can we get
The
sued for that? Hooniverse? Is that a Doctor Who thing? I'm not sure. We'll have to. This is the part where if we had an intern, they'd be looking it up for us.
you know, I might be
mean-
dropping the Hooniverse thing. You're right.
Don't blame it on allergies. We know you've been farting on your pillow. What now? Riddle me this, Randy. Why would I personally fart on my own pillow to do this to myself? Because that's just a different level of sickness.
It depends. Do you have a pillow you have a
What a
pillow
terrible
you need to
time
throw between the
freeze.
legs?
Whoa.
Oh,
Hoovians.
did I
Now
freeze?
that we could definitely get sued for, I think.
Did I
say
freeze?
it. I didn't say it.
Yeah, you did for a second.
Oh,
Oh. I
You
was
weren't-
saying, do you have a pillow that you put between the legs?
I do.
Do you
I do.
but
I
now
do.
do you have is that like set? See, I have one too, but it's like separate. It's like away from pillows.
It's
I
a great
use.
pink eye caper. We've just kind of fallen into it, I suppose. It's not pink eye, people. It's just
you weren't touching any squirrels, were you?
I wasn't. I did think about that while we were talking about that.
Okay.
I purely dry eyes. I've noticed my eyes lately. I don't know what it is. It's happened over the past few years where like they'll just leak. You know, they'll just people are like, "Are you all right?" I'm like, "What do you mean?" And there's just like tears going down my face and don't even know. You know,
Wow.
I've had that happen.
you for sure don't
Usually-
keep track of the leg pillow. Well, come on now.
See, sometimes
Pillow
you
talk?
got
It's-
little pillow talk here. Shacking up with Shep here out of
Yeah.
nowhere on a Monday night.
Yeah, this is getting out of control. Eh?
Mercedes, thanks for the like. Yeah, this is chaotic coming in hot on this Monday.
I like it. I'm here for it, dude.
But we're getting into the Hooniverse is what we're doing to bring it back down to earth here.
Yeah.
Figuring the who's out here.
Exactly.
Well, you know, something I remember last time when we were talking, I didn't fully get into talking about the origin of
Mhm.
the Who incident and where it all came from. And let me just share with you now that happened 3 years ago. We've been talking about this. It's been a little over 3 years ago that it all started. It was during COVID. If you remember those times, the times were bleak. We were all confused. We were all alone. And Jan and I were on this big property, just her and I, with nobody around but the animals. We started talking to the animals a lot more than normal, I got to tell you. Even more than just squirrels, everything. I'm telling you, everything. So during this remote time, I was lucky enough, Jan was lucky enough, we both had remote work, working at home, so at least we had finances covered. I turned to her one day and I said, "Hey, what would you think of making a movie with me, just out of the blue, right? So, man, Jan's the best. If it wasn't for Jan, this film wouldn't be what it is. It would be the Ron incident, to be honest, and it wouldn't be as exciting. So Jan, who at that point, you could take her picture, but she wasn't crazy about it. She wasn't crazy about ever being in a movie up to that point. Never thought about it. We're not actors, but we're characters. We play them in real life. And she said yes. And she said yes. Put some cheer. And I was like, oh my God, she said yes. Okay, so we got working on a script. I started writing right away. It was crazy. It just poured into me. And I have so many crazy influences, man. Like my friend for many years in the trenches, in the animation trenches, staying up late, working freelance, was Art Bell on Coast to Coast, this famous late night talk show that would talk about anything crazy and cryptic and all sorts of new monsters that I never knew about. I always learned about. And I go way back to the old days of famous monsters and Marvel and DC horror comics. All that came into play as well too. And so there we were making a movie. And it was pretty crazy that it came about during that, because we didn't know how long COVID was going to last. And we designed it so primarily it was Jan and I, so we could all stay safe. But eventually things opened up. So we do have a sequence where there's no spoilers. Our trailer is now officially out as well. Actually, if you go to Haunted Lodge Productions, our YouTube channel, you can check it out. We do expose that it all leads up to an anniversary party that we're prepping for within the movie. So we managed to get a bunch of really close friends and family in for that. And we had a great rip roar party. Everyone stayed up late. And one night we shot that entire sequence. And then after that, it was Jan and I into the forest.
That's the way to do it right there.
So, and on news front on the film, we have officially wrapped up. It takes so long with stop motion. If anyone's just tuning in, we're applying stop motion for creature effects to a degree. We're also using CGI in some portions. And stop motion is officially over. It's been wrapped. Natalie Garceau Turner has wrapped with the stop motion. It's now going on to Marco Santos to work comp. And we've seen some of the scenes come in comped, and Jan doesn't want to see them anymore. I'll tell you that. And they're creeping me out. I think we might have some nightmare-inducing material here that I'm not sure people are going to be expecting. So.
Good.
Can you play the trailer on this episode?
Oh, I hadn't even thought about that.
Suppose that's up to Ron.
Definitely, if you want to share the trailer and play it at some point here, we could. You
guys stick around, or I guess we could do it right now. We're the bosses here. We're make
the
these
boss. Yeah, that's true.
I think you're going to get plenty of Draculas this year.
Draculas,
I like movies with Draculas.
Vampires are cool. I think there's a new movement in vampire movies, and some of those ones I've seen are on an epic scale. Renfield even looks fun for giggles, and tons of gore from what I hear if you're into that. So no, there's no vampires. No vampires in this film though.
That does sound right up our alley.
Yeah. There are creatures. And we'll talk about that. And so touching back on certain things, like some of the major aspects of our film deal with ghost visitations. And another no spoiler in the trailer is Ghost Dad, and we have a Ghost Dad in the movie. And I could reveal that Ghost Dad is actually played by none other than our very own VFX lead, Dan Turner. So, and not only that, but his wife, Natalie Garceau Turner, who's our stop motion animator, she does an audio appearance as Mom. So they're playing Mom and Dad. And
nice.
And Dan and I kind of look similar. So here we go.
Yeah, here we go.
See Dan in the trailer. Happy pre-anniversary. I love you, darling.
Sunglasses?
They're video glasses. I wanted to capture the magic of our anniversary. The before, the during, and the after.
These glasses might be pretty cool for the party.
Can you imagine watching these years from now? It'll be a blast. But hey, whatever you do, don't stop recording. Who knows what we might capture?
Oh, that's a really nice picture of your dad.
I can't believe it's been over 10 years since he's been gone.
Holy fuck!
You know, Dad really adored this little guy.
You scared the shit out of me.
Oh, I'm sorry, darling. I'm gonna have to get this little guy fixed.
Whoa! What the fuck?
What the hell's going on?
Hey, is something wrong?
Oh, I'm fucking losing my mind. Nothing's gonna ruin our party. Hello, Jan.
What was that? Quit screwing around.
What?
Fucking scared.
Holy shit.
Jan, let's go!
Ron? Are you there?
Right on.
I'm right here, Dad.
Oh my goodness.
It's kind of gives me chills still too, and that's the brilliance of Vaughn. Oh, there's Natalie. Yeah, there are creatures. Yeah. Oh, I think it's going to scare some people. And the shrieks that you hear in that trailer, that's by none other than one of our producers, Ashleen Robinson, who's a renowned musician in her own band, The Devil's Drink, here in the Toronto area. She plays around and does gigs with their band, and it's awesome Celtic music. She's got such a range. That's her voice creating those shrieks. There's so much different talent on different levels that we're applying that I think we're going to really bring the chills. Yeah,
I'm excited. As soon as you sent the trailer over to us, I was like, this looks pretty good. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you get an idea of the ghostly kind of concept within the film that Dad's going to be around in this movie.
I'm excited.
Nice. Yeah, I'm hyped to watch it. Very hyped to watch it.
And so Jan and I are playing characters. We do use our own names, but we use an aspect of who we are.
Mhm.
And our characters are the part of us that are peace-loving hippies. That's what you're going to see in the movie. There's other aspects to us that we don't portray. So, we're essentially blind to anything strange going on around us. And there's a lot of themes that come forward in our movie that we deal with. And there's morals to be learned. One of the themes is being truthfulness. And one of the morals is, speak the truth and be honest, or there's consequences. And you'll see that my character doesn't necessarily speak the truth, and there's consequences to play and to pay. And when you ever watch movies, I hope people are telling me, don't do this and don't go there, because that's what I'm doing. And
Right.
I hope I hit buttons for people in a good way,
Well, that gets me even more excited, honestly.
Jan is the innocent one in this. I'm the one that bring us into terror.
We switch off. We like to. Sometimes he brings it on. Sometimes I bring it on. It really just depends.
Well,
Sometimes, yeah.
The
It
least
just
I could do,
happens.
if Jan was willing to make this movie with me, the least I could do was make her be the good cop. Like
Makes
that.
sense.
So I'll
I
take
vibe that usually is the best way to get somebody who you're like, I don't really know if they're going to be in on this. You're just like, but if we write them like a really badass part, like my friend Tyler, it's like we can usually get them on board with doing whatever, because we're like, but dude, you're like telling us that you're not fucking with us. You're telling us to like go home and shit. And he's always like, oh, word. Okay. I can do that.
Yeah, sometimes when you play in the sandbox, the little owl guy. Sometimes when you play in the sandbox, you got to give the better toy to the other kid if you want him to stick around, right? But
That is true.
Yeah.
Yeah, little Owlie. One of the things in the movie we're dealing with are trigger objects, and connected to hauntings. And hauntings, who knows what this is, right?
I believe the last time you were on here, we were talking about trigger objects,
Mhm.
and it was either later that night or the next day. We had been going through things in the nursery, and we had pulled out this old toy cow of Belle's, and it was laying there. It had been laying there all day and hadn't done a single thing. And I'm laying in here, and all of a sudden, I hear something from the other room. And I walk in there, and it's just on completely, just walking. And she said it
Wow.
had to be like cranked up or something. I was like, weird. The timing on it was just a little too strange for me. I'm like, we just talked about this.
I'm not going to say you have a trigger object, but you might have a trigger object.
I'm definitely gonna be keeping an eye on that cow.
Wow, cow's awesome too. I have a thing for cows. It might have been the moo incident if I wasn't careful.
Like you didn't mention
Yeah.
it was gonna be.
We did talk about Owlie a little bit last time.
Owlie, yeah, and Owlie's a really old toy that we purchased online, and it was a family heirloom that was from the 30s, I believe, and I still have him right here. He hangs out by me at my desk all the time.
Nice.
This is the little trigger object, and this was Dad's toy, his beloved toy Owlie, and there's such a connection to Owlie that Owlie is around, and Owlie is almost a portent to things within the movies. So, and apologies, everybody. While we watched the trailer, I should have warned you that there's some F-bombs, and it could be a drinking game, But if you saw what Jan and I experienced in this movie, you'd be dropping some bombs too, I think.
It's true. We did. That was a review of ours not too long ago at the baby shower. There's just one word that we use a little too much. We didn't need to be told. It was fuck. That was the word that was.
Fuck, man.
Yeah, now it's going to be fuck.
No fucking way.
As much as I want these stop motion monsters, I also just want a dude in a giant owl costume.
Wow.
Then watch Watchmen. There you go.
Oh, wow. Wow.
No,
who knows?
I mean, I would also watch a dude in a giant owl costume as well. I love that kind of shit. I always enjoyed shows like Buffy the Vampire Slayer and Doctor Who because of that practical aspect, because of the guy in the costume aspect.
And there's a certain element to that we've used within the film as well. We do have some practical edge as well, and so we do have a little bit of everything. I grew up in a practical age, and I do love that. And if it wasn't for my connection to animation, there's no way I would have went this route, because I would have known who to go to. And everybody that's doing the CGI stop motion VFX for us, they're so vetted and trusted. They're friends. They are true friends and family. The type of friends that you guys are family, and that's who our family is. We are family, and I love that everyone is so invested and everyone's become so jazzed, involved in the movie. And we've even had help from outside, and we've made new great friends. Our poster that you see behind me here, this was designed by a graphic artist that I met a few years ago when we were just exposing the project online. His name is Jason Christopher. Did a brilliant job just using a photo that we took. Thank you. That was from our deck, and he jazzed it up. So portions of that are real. It was actually it was a summer solstice full moon that actually is behind the eyeball of the owl. So it's giving us that ambient light, and so we have so much cool talent. It's just helping out where we need it, and it's brilliant.
Yeah, it's always nice when things come together like that. Makes it feel like more of a community project, rather than just a solo venture.
Oh, I say this over and over. It's not my film. This is our film. And I tell everybody on the crew, this is our film. It really is. And I'm not taking sole ownership of this at all. If it wasn't for everybody involved, you're not going to see what you're going to see. It's crazy.
Right.
And I failed to mention last time, because I wasn't sure how our time was, but Chase, you had mentioned really enjoying the work of Leica, the stop motion at Leica. Well, here's a little inside input. I have a very dear friend who is dear friends with one of the key fabricators at Leica. Her name is Karen. Sorry, am I getting it wrong here? I got to make sure I got this right. Brenda Baumgarten. And she's been working there for over 7 years, puppet fabricator, and she's a character project manager. And she consulted with us, with Dan Turner and Natalie, when just before we were building the armature and fabricating with the latex to wrap around the creature, the stop motion creature. So we had some high end input to help us do it on a budget as well too. And it's great. Some of the tips she gave us, it's like, wow, that's genius. And she helped us out so much. So input in strange places, you know?
Yeah, that's dope. That's really awesome.
It is. Yeah, we got to, as you know, we were on the set of F not too long ago, and we got a new taste for that, that teamwork. I feel like, not that we don't have that on our own sets, but we got to see it on a bigger scale. I feel like.
Yeah, that's exciting. What Ash is doing, like, he's one of my heroes. I can't believe what he did with Holes in the Sky. I just love it. That's Dan. That's Ghost Dad. Yeah, back when I first met Dan in the animation industry many moons ago, we were working for Disney Toronto, working on Little Mermaid 2. And Dan was my shadow supervisor. I was drawing shadows. And the first time I saw him, it's like I wanted to do one of those mirror gags with him. Just kind of moved the same way. We had that same look, and we set it a few years apart, so within the story is acceptable, because Dan and I are closer to age than a father should be. You shouldn't be having children at the age of 10. I'm just saying, but if that's what hey, I'm not gonna, that happens. I understand, but it's not my business.
That's right.
I'm hyped for it too.
Mercedes with her mad spear throwing skills.
There's so much great talent in EFT, and you've got Dylan Brown doing a segment. You've got Joshua Brucker doing the segments, and two other fellers I don't know that well yet, but they come very highly vetted from ASH, and I so look forward to that. Brenda was amazing. She is a stop motion guru, and we had the opportunity to chat with her. She's such a beautiful person. We're so lucky. There's been so many synchronicities and so many happenstances, if you want to call them that, the universe giving us things at times when we need it, through connections and just having availability with people. And I'm not surprised the last time we talked about trigger objects that maybe something happened to you. This is the type of thing that's been happening around us. There is something to what we've accomplished, and there's a certain synergy, there's a certain energy still around the project, and it's not even out there yet. Considering we even captured very strange anomalies in two different segments, 2 different times, one daytime, one nighttime during the film. It's just a lot of strangeness going on, and there always has been here. There's a reason why we call our production studio Haunted Lodge. If you want to hear a cool little story I've never shared with anybody outside of friends, let me share something with you that happened here. Last time we were talking, we had touched on, let me just get a drink of water before I get going here.
Let's do it, man.
Quick hydrate.
When last we talked, I was discussing about safety zones in your house, where things just should have some respect and not cross over. There are some safe zones you should have: your bathroom and your bedroom. Well, we had some instances in our bedroom that we didn't like. One in particular was mine. It was personal. Some people might call this sleep paralysis. A lot of doctors and a lot of people that want to not believe it's anything other than your own mind would put a tag on it. I don't know what it was. All I can tell you is my impression. And that's that I was sound asleep and I'm a fairly light sleeper if something jostles me.
Mm-hmm.
And up to this point, I was so always comfortable with hanging my hand over the edge of the bed, my feet, my hands. It's a comfort thing for me. You know, I don't
Right.
worry about things grabbing me because it's my comfort zone. It's my protected zone. Well, don't you know, with my hand hanging over, my eyes are closed, I'm sleeping. Somebody started to shake my hand like gesture, started to grip my hand. And you know, if you ever met a real kind of douchey guy, a real macho kind of douchey guy where they're trying to show you up and they keep squeezing harder and harder to try and show you up and show you how much of a man they are. Well, that's what was happening. Something was squeezing my hand tighter and tighter to the point where I couldn't even get a grip of it. And it woke me out of my sleep. I couldn't speak. I had paralysis. I was trying to scream and wake up Jan. I couldn't even get a moan out. The only thing I did, and this actually worked for me, I've heard about this before, it worked. I thought of an extremity and I tried to wiggle my toes. I just managed to wiggle my toes a bit, and this scream launched out of me. And the minute it did, this grip let go of my hand. And it hurt, man. Like, it really hurt. And this thing was power gripping me, whatever it was. It was pretty intense. So after that, we kind of got a bit freaked out. I didn't quite tell Jan what that was while we were sleeping. That was pretty freaky. And we kind of cleansed the place a little bit, after the bedroom after that. And nothing happened after that, thankfully.
Yeah, that would freak me out. I mean, that'd be enough to get me to start saging the place.
Yeah, especially when it's supposed to be safe, right? Like, now there's all sorts of crazy stuff that had gone on in the cabin, and that's not our sleeping quarters. So we watch movies and stir the ghost up in there in a good way. We don't confront or call anything out. I think we all get along in there. I think they like our vibe. We chill pretty good with them.
Before the show, we were talking a little bit about found footage movies. What are some of your favorite? I was wondering earlier.
Wow. Well, I like everything from the extreme high found footage budgets. There's a few good ones, to all the way down to like zero budget. I like the thought, the love that goes into a lot of these low budget ones, and I can get past little bumps in that here. If it's got a strong story, I'm a story driven guy. I love watching things for stories. So some of my favorite high ones got to be Cloverfield. I would drop the half-hour intro at the party once I've seen it several times and just skip right into the earthquake. So I like watching it now, and that could be sacrilege for a lot of people, but that's where the action is. Crazy effects. I'm looking forward to a sequel, a direct sequel to that. Supposedly that's not found footage, but nonetheless, if they do a direct sequel, I'm so psyched for that. There's some great high budget ones, and other ones are like Grave Encounters. The whole Grave Encounters is amazing. I like Digging Up the Marrow even. Yeah, Cloverfield's awesome.
Yeah, I loved it. I actually just watched it the other day. I was watching all the bonus features on it and everything, because it is just such a the talent behind that movie too. I mean, J.J. Abrams and Matt Reeves, like way before he ever did the Batman and the Planet of the Apes films, like he did Cloverfield, and it was excellent.
Oh, and the classics like Blair Witch, like that was hitting theaters. I remember when that was hitting theaters, and that caused such a shock. Most people I knew were having nightmares because of that.
Blair Witch, I know. I've always enjoyed found footage. I know for me, I always have a soft spot for the Paranormal Activity franchise. Because I remember distinctly with that first one coming out, it was like right when I was at a ripe age as like a film geek. And I was like, I'd never seen anything like it before. Because I forget what it was at the time, but there was that thing where you could like, if enough people voted for it or whatever, or asked for it, they'd bring it to your town. I forget what it was called, but they did it with like concerts and all sorts of events. And they did that with this movie. and I was too young to drive myself to the theater or anything like that. But I saw it in probably the creepiest way you could possibly see Paranormal Activity. My uncle had a bootleg copy of it, so it's just a disc with Paranormal Activity written in Sharpie on it. And he's like, "You want to watch this movie?" I was like, "Let's do it." And so, yeah, that added to the creep factor a lot. And I
Yeah.
remember watching it with him, and the copy that he got had the alternate ending on it, like as the ending of the movie. And so when the movie came out and a lot of people saw it in theaters, everybody kept talking about this dumb ending, this dumb ending. I'm like, you thought that was dumb? It's like, we watched the same movie. Well, apparently we did not,
Right.
because my ending was significantly different. But my ending would not have allowed for a sequel so easily. So I
Yeah.
feel like they still could have done a sequel because they just kept going backwards in time. So it's their
Yeah.
loss. It was an
There's
excellent ending.
there is still more for them to do if they wanted to. I think they could squeak more, and they've got such a fan base, right?
Yeah.
Low budgets, though. I there's some low budgets, and there's some friends I've made along the way over the years. Some directors and some creators of amazing low budget films that I just adore. So let me name drop some names here and give them some promotion. First of all, Dylan Brown. Since I've been making the movie, I reached out to him just as a fan, and that's back in the days. He started with the Devil's Children, way back in the days, and since then he's made several films. His quality keeps going up and up and up. He keeps tightening up, and right now he's working alongside Michael Rock. Those two are like, they're buddies like you on an action level, and they're doing brilliant found footage action stuff. They've got Tahoe Joe, they've got Ghost coming out real soon. Brilliant work. I love their body of work. Joshua Brucker, who's part of the Horror Dads collective as well, with Dylan and Michael. He's doing some other films too as well. He's got Mothman that's already on YouTube. Sorry, not YouTube. All these are on Tubi. You can all go there and watch that, and that really supports the artists as well. If anybody watches that, you get a chance to like it or comment. That really helps them out too. Another person along the way, somebody who actually helped us and supported us when we had an Indiegogo is I'm not going to name any names, but somebody involved with the Curse of Aurora. And I love the Curse of Aurora. It's an American found footage film that was shot in Canada, based on a legend in Quebec. And that's a brilliant example as well of what you can accomplish on low budget with heart and talent. Let me tell you one that's actually very similar to our style in the Who incident. It was kind of an inspiration for me to want to shoot the film and direct it the way I did. And that's a movie called Home Movie. Let's see, it was made in 2008. It was directed by Christopher Denham. I don't know if you recognize that name. I think he was responsible for co-writing Shutter Island, and it stars Adrian Pedar. If you know who Adrian Pedar is, kind of an A-lister. Some people don't like it when you get an A-lister in a found footage. It takes it away, but he was very convincing in this one. And so Home Movie is shot like a home movie, much like our movie. Somebody gets a camera and they want to capture memories, and things go south real fast in Home Movie. No spoilers or anything, but I highly recommend that one. That one's a lot of fun. It was a direct inspiration for our style, for sure.
One that I always enjoyed was, I believe it was called Afflicted, and it was like a vampire flick.
Yes.
And that one was good. I really enjoyed it. It was different. Around the time I saw it, I was like, I haven't really seen anything like this. I really enjoyed this.
I believe that was Canadian directed too, because even the characters are coming from Toronto, and that was intense. And see, I wonder what the budget was on that, because that was some pretty brilliant budget transformation budgets. And spoilers, everyone, it's vampires and there's transformation.
Yeah, right.
That was pretty wild and cool and epic for found footage.
And for me, the thing, I mean, I was already a found footage fan. I feel like Paranormal Activity really kind of solidified that, but what took it that step farther and also got me into anthology movies like a lot more than I already was VHS and that whole franchise of movies. I still need to catch up on these last few that they did. But I've seen the first three, and those first two I really enjoy. Um, that first one really changed a lot for me. I feel like that was one of those movies I saw it, and it was like, this is what a movie can be. Like, it can be anything.
Yeah. And the thing, and my love for anthology, whether it's written or film, is that if you get a bummer, well, that's okay. You got two or more to go through.
Yeah.
And check it out. It's so different. I love the variety, and I love being able to compact something in a small amount of time to get an idea across without filler.
Yeah. I know. I for a brief time when found footage 3D was coming out, I was like Facebook friends with the guy who made it. We like talked a few times, but that was an interesting film. I found it was very meta. I know it was kind of trying to be like the Scream of found footage, and I don't know if it quite met that for me personally, but I still enjoyed it as a concept of, hey, let's make the first 3D found footage movie, and then everything goes wrong, and you're in the first 3D found footage. I mean, it's very simple, but some of the best things are.
It was a fun ride, and it was a
Yeah.
fun ride, and
I only wish I got to see it in 3D. It was my biggest thing. I would love to watch it in 3D.
Now, was it 3D like blue?
I believe it was like, yeah,
that's
I believe
old
it was
school.
old school.
I remember going to 3D back in theaters when they were. I remember House of Wax, the original Vincent Price House of Wax, not the Paris Hilton House of Wax,
Right.
but the original re-airing, like, coming back out in theaters in 3D, and that was a trip. There was some. We even had. I think it was Revenge of the Creature, one of the Creature from Black Lagoons, air on TV, where our local Beckers sold your 3D glasses. So it aired one night, and then you sat at home and watched 3D. It was brilliant.
Yeah. I miss those good old days of 3D. I was just talking about this with my girlfriend the other day, because good old Pluto TV, we were flipping through it, and Spy Kids 3 Game Over was on. And for me as a kid, that was my first experience with a 3D movie. It wasn't as hot as it was at the time, and I loved Robert Rodriguez, and I'd always watch the bonus features on these things. And I was pretty young. I would have been like third grade, I think, when this movie came out. And I remembered Robert Rodriguez saying in an interview that 3D was few and far between. And if you're going to do it, then you got to go for it. And it was such a cool experience getting to see that movie in 3D, and even watching it now in 2D. It still pops off the screen even without the glasses, but just the whole experience, like put your 3D glasses on now and all that. Like it was a fun ride. And we were talking about, like, we just saw Guardians of the Galaxy 3 in IMAX 3D. IMAX 3D is a whole other beast. I mean, that's just so immersive. But 3D these days, it adds a lot of depth to the picture, and that's interesting. I do enjoy that with some things, but give me the gimmicks any day. In my personal opinion, after Avatar happened and the 3D boom happened, of all the people, Martin Scorsese, James Cameron, all these people used 3D. The people who used it best were the Jackass guys and Harold and Kumar. They made the best 3D movies in the past 15 years. So
I wasn't even aware Harold and Kumar did that. 3D is great for horror. Do you remember the cheesy 3D back Friday the 13th in 3D, where you get all the weapons coming right at you? Here it comes, folks. Look out. Whack, whack. In fact,
Nightmare on Elm Street was the first one that I remember 3D.
Oh, really?
Freddy's Dead, I think they threw that one out in 3D, I think.
Interesting.
They even parodied 3D in a local comedy show called SCTV here in Toronto. Yeah. And that was great, because they would do the wink, 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 wink. And it was just, they were parodying reality at the time, which was cheesy 3D glasses. Mm-hmm. 3D is interesting in horror. And that's the interesting thing, to segue back, using stop motion. It's got such an ethereal 3D feel, and the untimely nature of shifting something to make it move, as opposed to naturally 3D like moving it with a sculpted CGI character. There's a huge difference, and I think it's going to show where we use it. It's we use it sparingly, but it's creepy. It's creepy.
I actually believe when digital 3D took off around the time of Avatar, my first digital 3D movie I saw in theaters was a horror film. It was My Bloody Valentine 3D, and that was awesome because they were still doing the gimmick shit, which is my favorite. Give me a ping pong paddle, just something stat. Jaws 3D, yes.
Jaws 3D was classic.
A second ago said Dr. Tongue.
Dr. Tongue, great.
The 3D Resident Evil movie was the most memorable because they made the flashlight 3D. And that doesn't make sense. I love those movies. They're just nonsense movies, and I love them for it.
Oh, they're great. It's part of everything that makes us who we are. If you were grown up, if you grew up with that, like Monsters was so big. It's monster everything for me when I was a kid, and including comics. I still have some comics. But that actually, we'll talk about another influence. Just prior to me asking Jan, will you be my co-creator? Getting on my knee, proposing a movie to her. Comics pop back out in my life, and part of my original collection from childhood, some original old like 12 center comics from Marvel and DC. I pulled them back out after a long time, and I was reading those, and those are anthology as well too. The idea of morals in those anthology comics, kind of a la Creepshow. The old EC comics, they used to come in anthologies. The comics would have 3 stories. In each of them, you knew if you did something bad, there were consequences. And, that's a big foundation for horror. When you do bad stuff happens. If you look back at the campy 80s stuff, if you were having sex, doing drugs, taking alcohol, doing anything bad or unruly, Jason was going to get you, man. Like, Scream mocked that and parodied that.
I forget who the DC hero is that I like. That he was in all those comics that were like because the Creature Commandos were in them a lot, and then
Swamp Thing, maybe.
No, he's like Stranger something. He's like the Stranger something.
Oh, the Unknown Stranger. He was war related. Yeah,
it might be that. It might be that.
Bandages on. Yeah.
Well, there's one because DC's thrown out the animated. They've taken those older comics that they used to have little anthologies, and they put out little animated shorts just in that style with all those old ones. And there was one of them I think it was him that was really really baller. And of course, Creature Commandos was always dope. I always like that. I'm hyped to see that's going to be a thing now.
Yeah, in the future. And that was the comic version of the Universal Monsters, right? And that's why it was so appealing. And going back all the way back, Universal Monsters were a major influence for me in my childhood and monsters as well.
Phantom Stranger. Thank you. Marco's got it.
Thank you, Marco. Marco was a plethora of influence.
Creepshow had some good morals in there.
Oh, yeah, man.
Yeah. The only thing I love more than an anthology movie is an anthology television show. Tales from the Dark Side.
Tales from the Crypt.
Tales from the Crypt.
And
go back to the Night Gallery with Rod Serling, which was like horror based and not sci-fi like the Twilight Zone.
Yeah, say Twilight Zone. They had another one that I used to watch when I was a kid too. I can't think of what it was.
The Outer Limits was
that's
like
it.
Yeah,
Outer Limits. That was it.
Those were great. All great, and that was just all candy for me too. And in fact, comics were such a big part. We actually have a comic. We just show it briefly in the movie. These are old Gold Key comics, and we have a few you see within the movie. There's actually an Easter egg somewhere with a couple more, but they were such an influence. And the cover is a direct kind of correlation to our movie, so it's kind of funny. And it's Dad's, and I'm talking to Dad about how nerdy he is. So in essence, I'm talking to myself because it's my own comic. But
I was going to ask on the monster movie front, mostly just because I've never talked to anybody who's also seen this movie. Have you seen the film Phase 4?
Oh, with the ants?
With the ants, yes, with the ants. What
I think I have.
I caught this every October. I like to try my best to watch 31 horror movies, and every other October, I'll just strictly watch things I've never seen before.
Okay.
And so about a year or two back, I Phase 4 was on Hulu, and it just seemed so intriguing. And I watched it, and it blew my fucking mind. And I've never met anybody who's seen this damn movie. So it's like one of those things that I'm like, did I imagine it? I was like, somebody needs to know about this film.
It's kind of like a fever dream. Yeah.
It did feel like a fever dream because it was just such an interesting film. Whereas them was the big monster ants, something like eight-legged freaks or something like that. But this was like psychological warfare with a colony of ants and scientists. I was like, dude, this movie's a trip. This is insane.
If you want a trip of a horror movie, it's more psychological than anything. It's a movie from the 80s. It's kind of obscure. I do believe Tubi has it now, though. Tubi's got everything. Tubi's so amazing. This is a movie called Brain Dead. It's called Brain Dead, and it stars Bill Paxton and Bill Pullman. And it's such a mental twist. It's quite unbelievable. You've got to see it. Saul Bass
did the credit sequences back in the day, I believe, for films like Alfred Hitchcock films and such. Yeah, it was a trip.
There was such an art to that, Mm-hmm. And, speaking of credits too, like eventually when the film does come out, everybody remember to watch through to the end of the credits because we do have a little Easter egg. I do love my Easter eggs, so there's going to be an Easter egg at the end of the credit roll that's kind of interesting. That might expose and explain a bit more.
Word.
Yeah. There's Easter eggs in the movie as well. Other Easter eggs, I don't really want to go into what they are, but when you notice them, you'll recognize what it's homaging. I do love when artists do that. I think I talked last time about how Sam Raimi did that in his movie, and other people do that, just homaging with little trinkets and things here and there from other things.
I know Shep also rewatched Evil Dead Rise the other night. The both of us, I think we watched it the same day. And I think I caught it the first time, but the second time around, it was more obvious to me that they made a reference to the Nightmare on Elm Street movies, which Raimi would always do in all of his.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. And I love that even as a kid before the internet, watching that. We never knew.
I was joining the MCU.
The after credits.
I love
Gotta have the after credits.
Not the M.
Are you the Phantom Stranger?
It's the WCU, maybe, or I'm not going to get in trouble for that one, am I?
I don't think so.
It's the Who universe. But so yeah, comics have always been an influence. Even growing up, we were so lucky in the 80s to have some of the most brilliant movies. Things like The Lost Boys. You want to talk about vampire movies. Getting to watch that when it came out in theaters. Monster Squad. I was a little bit older. I think I was 19 when Monster Squad came out, and that's beloved to me. Like, if you want to introduce a heartwarming monster movie to kids, that one's brilliant. So well written.
That one was just on Pluto the other day, and I haven't seen that one. That one's been on my list for a long time now to check out. And I sat down to watch it, and unfortunately I didn't have the time to stick around for the whole thing, but it looks like a blast. It looks right.
It's a love letter to classic horror movies done in the 80s, and they did it so well that the effects. I think it was Stan Winston Studios that did all the makeup and all the creature effects, and you had every representation from the Universal monsters. And yeah, we were so lucky to have things like that. The Thing, John Carpenter's The Thing, changed my mind, and I was never the same after I saw that. I was underage, I'll admit it. It was in the drive-in, watched it after Conan, head popping off going, wow, this is interesting. And then The Thing, okay, so this is what a movie can be, right? Mm-hmm. And that was all practical, and I do love that. Love it. I love a good monster movie.
I agree. I was having that feeling watching Cloverfield again the other day. I was just like, I love a good monster movie.
Yeah,
I really do.
And when you can build pathos for the monster, kind of like they did with Clovey and Cloverfield, like I felt sorry for that monster. I did feel like it was stuck on Earth, and we were just the jerks running around going, "Get off the planet, man!"
Yeah, right.
Hey
Right.
man, can't we all get along? But he was walking around crushing people. But
That's
I don't
true.
think he meant it. But that stuff he dropped off his back, I think he meant that.
Yeah, that seems pretty personal.
Yeah, that was brutal.
I watched that not terribly long ago. It had to have been a few months.
I've always enjoyed those movies. My only beef with those movies was that they had a chance to do an anthology movie that was like, somebody once described it as a mystery box franchise where it always shared the title of Cloverfield, but it was going to be something different every time. There was no interconnected story. And in an age, like, I love my cinematic universes as much as the next person, but like in an age where that's what everything is, I loved this thing that's like, you never know what you're going to get. I mean, Cloverfield was excellent. 10 Cloverfield Lane was excellent. It was, but it was this whole other thing.
Yeah.
Cloverfield Paradox was okay. It was a film filled with phenomenal ideas and sequences, not a very coherent film. And then it was like, by the way, we're going to tie things up. I was like, no, don't do that. It's like, just keep being like the Twilight Zone of movies. Just keep making these new stories, and I'll come back every time.
And and that's, to me, that's the name of the game, is being inventive, doing something new. I find Hollywood's just kind of repeating the same movies. All these reboots of classic Disney. As an animator, I'm not impressed. I don't gravitate towards these new CGI versions of the classics. In my opinion, why not sink that much money into creating a new classic? Why? I understand that they have a franchise, but they're beating it into the ground. And this goes for live action films as well. I find that there's a lot of cookie cutout, formulaic, let's go the safe route. and I like when people are avant-garde. I think there should be a forward movement. And I see this in a lot of these young directors. Found footage is such a brilliant format to come out of nowhere and storytell. And a lot of these directors are doing that. And they're very creative. And they're thinking in outside of the box manners, which I love that, on a high or low budget.
Mm-hmm. I know. I feel like watching low budget movies, like, as if the movie's good, the movie's good. And I can watch something that's low budget and forgive its budget, and look past that and look at scenes and go, I see what they were trying to do, and if they had a budget, how rad this would be. I'm willing to go the extra mile with my imagination to fill in their blanks. There was a movie, one of my first roommates, we had this really fantastic rental store here on campus that unfortunately closed, as most rental stores do. But it had everything. It was just a little mom and pop shop, but they got everything from everywhere. Like, you could find the craziest shit in there. And there was this movie called Slashers, spelled with a $. And the premise of Slashers was, it was a Japanese game show where the movie was the American episode, so all the contestants were conveniently American and could speak English, and they're put into this arena that looks like a paintball arena, flimsy plywood and whatnot, and these slashers are let loose in the arena, and they have whoever survives wins, however much money, and it's this game show being broadcast, like, in Japan. And I loved it. And the whole time I'm watching it, I'm like, if somebody gave these guys money to beef this movie up, this would be a classic. I just thought it was such an interesting premise, and it was so much fun. But if a movie's entertaining, you can't deny it.
And there's a whole library that Jan and I go through watching from the 80s that I know a lot of people have trouble with older movies, but if they could give them a chance, there's so many brilliant low budget straight on horrors, horror comedies, from the 80s. And that even goes for horror. One of my favorite directors in 80s horror, he's no longer with us. That's Stuart Gordon. He was responsible for Reanimator 1, 2, 3, I believe. Day Gone, which is an amazing Cthulhu adaptation and story that takes place on a seacoast. From Beyond was another crazy movie, and that sort of stuff is just fuel for the imagination. That's way outside of the box sort of stuff. And for a minuscule budget, I wouldn't say those were low, but those were some of the kind of B horror flicks from the 80s that might fly under the radar for a lot of people. People should really check this stuff out.
Yeah. That's what's
I was
up.
going to have to resort to found footage of. Hey, if the writer's right, we're right here.
Yeah, right. It's kind of good for creatives that are outside of the spectrum of Hollywood and the structure. It might actually help us. There might be content that people are looking for. Just saying.
Give us a ring. We're working on our Chase and Shep Bible right now. So,
and
here.
Don't forget that bromance for the Harlequin.
Hallmark channel.
Hallmark,
give us a call. Investors, could be you. Chud, I've never seen that one.
Oh,
That's
you
also
should
on
check
my
out
list.
Chud. I watched that in one of the Eaton Center theaters back in the 80s when I was a kid, wandering down Yonge Street in Toronto. It was one of these things that were the size of your living room. And they had, I think, 50 theaters at the time, which was crazy. And Chud is a beloved low-budget crazy. Chud stands for Cannibalistic Humanoid Underground Dwellers, for anybody that doesn't know.
Slither. I was wanting to revisit Slither recently with all the James Gunn love.
All of these films are in my physical library.
I remember my best friend and I would search on demand as teens looking for new B horror films, and now we can do it on Tubi. I know they make it very convenient.
Yeah, Tubi.
I agree. Sometimes I was listening to I got real into Eli Roth's History of Horror podcast that he was doing, and I was listening to the one he did with Stephen King, and Stephen King said this thing about even the worst horror movie he's ever seen was great. And they were just talking about how he'll go out to see anything. He goes, January is this dumping ground. He goes, it's my favorite time of year to go to the movies because you never know what you're going to find. You might find some diamond in the rough, some new horror classic that nobody else is coming out to see this, and just being able to support those low budget movies. And there was I'm not as good about it currently as I have been. I'm still good about I'll just pick things up here and there, but like I feel like with the downfall of rental chains and everything, that's where it was at. I would go to the video store and just pick shit up and take it home and watch anything and everything,
Browse it off a weird looking fucking cover.
Yeah.
That tactile experience, that was an experience. And every time you went to the Mon Pa video rental, whether it was a big blockbuster or a small Mon Pa, that was part of the experience. And looking at those crazy covers going, I'm finally going to watch that crazy horror one.
I have to say, I was having a conversation with my mother earlier today about some people in my life that have passed, and how every now and again, we'll have that feeling that we miss them and stuff. But I don't think of all the things I've lost over the past few years, there's nothing I mourn more than video rental stores. I'm like, man, I miss my grandmother. But then I started thinking about just walking the aisles of Family Video. I'm like, I just start crying. I'm just like, God, I missed it already. I actually mourned it again the other day when I realized I can't take my son to a video rental store and be like, yo, let's go pick out a movie. Like, that's not a thing. So,
no,
R.I.P.
Yeah.
I gotta show my kid. I don't know if he remembers, but I took my son to Family Video a few times. Yeah, Tubi can cut us a check anytime they want, bro.
Sure.
If Tubi needs a talk show or anything, if they're in the market, we're cheap.
Sniff it out.
We don't need that Showtime money. We can take Tubi.
I can take that AMC money. You know what I'm saying?
Make an episodic series and you can get on there, maybe.
There you go.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
But
never know what's coming next.
But horror movies, great. Horror movies just charge me. They always feel me.
Mm-hmm.
Jan's not a big horror buff, so in fact, the idea of her doing a horror movie, it was scary enough going in the woods in the dark at like midnight, because there's nothing around us. And even watching the film for Jan, even myself, I'm jumping, and it's like, woof, it's you're gonna enjoy it. It's gonna be a rough go watching us be stupid, just because I make that call. But
Yeah.
if I didn't, we wouldn't have a film. You ever do that and say, why are they
Oh,
doing
yeah.
that? Oh, wait,
Oh,
we
yeah.
wouldn't have a movie if they didn't do that, right? So
No reason. The
there's
element of style.
there's so many cool movies that here's a good one that I just saw recently. It's back a year ago when I had Shudder for a while. I got to get Shudder again. I do like Shudder. And there's a movie I saw for the first time on there. It's not Terrifier without the clown. It's Terrified with a D.
Oh, was this a foreign film?
Yes, it
If
was.
I'm not mistaken,
believe
this
it's
was on
Spanish.
one of their like countdowns. I watched their like 101 horror movie moments, and that was on there. And I wished I hadn't seen that because there were a lot of great recommendations from the show that were spoiled for me from watching the show, and that was one of them. And that looked fantastic.
It's amazing. It had such new concepts for paranormal and interdimensionality with spirit or whatever it is, and on a creepy level too. Pretty
It looks
ghastly.
creepy as hell.
Yeah. And so I haven't seen a film like that in a long time. And I'm not talking like sinister creepy. That's just throwing everything at you, sinister. Sinister is designed not to be relentless. There's probably people with heart conditions after watching Sinister. But this one I found really creative. Terrified was great, Dan? I had recommended that to Dan, and it's rare you find something like that.
Terrified was that's enough endorsements for me.
Look at that. Yeah, must watch list. I believe
it's like somebody's renewing their Shudder account.
There you go. I've got to do that too because I haven't even seen that found footage documentary on there yet. I'm really looking forward to that.
It's a good one. Yeah,
there's a bunch of new VHS on there too. I haven't even got to that. I look forward to.
It is that time. I know we could all talk for hours, but it's time to start winding down. One time for the mind. Closing thoughts, gentlemen.
Closing thoughts. Go out there and check out some of the lower tiered horror movies, ladies and gentlemen, the found footage movies, because they're pretty baller. You never know what you'll find out there.
Yeah, man. Yeah, check out some of the names that I drops on here, and all those films are on that T channel that I'm not getting any endorsements for Tubi. And support them just by watching it. It supports the artist. And if you've got the thumbs up on the app, give them that. That really helps too.
Awesome. Yeah. I had something. I lost it. I'm going to be honest with you. Yeah, I don't know. Support, local artists. And stay tuned for, Ron's flick, The Who Incident, and the film from all the aforementioned names, Ash and Dylan and John and all of them who are directing the segments over at Eft.
Yeah.
Movie for you if you haven't seen it yet. Teeth. I was just explaining this film to my girlfriend just like yesterday.
Yeah,
I was just explaining that. I asked her because she's not a horror movie person either. I've been so proud of her, the few that she's watched. But I was like, have you ever heard of Teeth? Like, maybe, I know you're not a horror movie person, but you are a woman. So maybe you've heard of the film Teeth. And she had not. And the only reason I brought it up is because they just recently announced that they're making it into a stage musical.
Ooh.
So,
wow.
That's exciting.
Musical.
Wow. So there's going to be a splash area.
So my one time for the mind, thank you, Mercedes, with the assist, is there's a Teeth, the musical. So if you haven't seen Teeth, watch that and then know that they're making a musical version of it.
I feel like ever since they did Evil Dead the musical, now we're going for it.
Yeah, watch out for False Teeth. There's a bootleg of that out there.
The False Teeth.
All righty. Absolutely.
It's coming out. We'll have to check. I'd like to go see that one in a musical form.
I think it'd be interesting. That's for sure. All right, before this gets out of hand, let's wrap this up, close it out. Thanks everybody for joining us. Ron, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah,
peace.
Smooches.